Brad, let's compare 2012. We just got out of 2012. It's like 2013. Big things happen as you put on your Civ-looking jacket going in there. Compare 2012 to maybe what's going to happen in 2013. We already know there's some big shows coming through.
Yeah.
Bellator in February. XFC's coming through again for the second time in February. Just sort of compare what happened in 2012 for us.
2012 was wow.
Yeah.
2012 was what I expected to be in probably 2015 on so many different levels. I didn't see the regional fighters and my management company getting the opportunities that we got. I figured that was probably 3-4 years off. I really did. Fight Lab, another big year. 2012 was pretty much what I expected. I expected it to blow up and for us to do, quite a bit more shows, as far as the military bases and as far as picking up another venue, that we could call home like Coyote Joe. So Fight Lab pretty much went as I expected, but as far as the regional MMA scene and the individual fighters blowing up, the guys I managed with Bread and Butter Management.
Do that.
Oh, did I mess it up? Oh, man.
I was like, where'd the microphone go? Sorry.
It's okay. All right.
We'll just start it over.
Yep, that's cool.
Just start it over from your answer.
Okay. 2012 was a great year, phenomenal. I didn't expect it to go like it was. I expected Fight Lab to do what we did. I expected us to have more shows as far as the military bases and as far as being able to take Coyote Joe's and call it our home. Didn't get back to Grady Cole, like we originally planned, but at the same time, I think we did 9 or 10 shows in 2012, so I expected that. I didn't expect the regional MMA scene with the fighters, with my Bread and Butter Management Company and the guys that I manage and guide their careers. I didn't think that I would see them in the XFC or Bellator or anything, or an opportunity to be in Bellator. I figured I'd see that in 2015, 2016, so that was a pleasant surprise. And 2013 already is looking just ridiculous. I mean, we got a Fight Lab January 25th coming up. February 7th, Shane Crenshaw is going to be in Gwinnett, Georgia, fighting on Bellator 88. February 14th, we'll be right back here in Charlotte with Bellator 89 with Nate Davis and Mont McMullins and a to be determined announcement at the end of this video. And then February 22nd, we're right back in Charlotte again with the XFC. So just so much stuff happening so quick, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't see it till 2-3 years from now.
Since you are sort of like the mouth of the South of Southern MMA going on here, are you surprised just regionally how it has blown up so far at the tail end of this year? We had in August you had XFC coming through, a lot of great regional fighters on there, and a lot of them got contracts for the XFC and got looked at now for Bellator and stuff going on. Are you surprised how this is taken off so fast?
I'm not surprised it happened. Like I said, I knew it was going to happen. I can't believe it happened in 2012 and going into 2013. And some of that, with anything, I'm not going to call it luck, but opportunity met hard work, and things just worked out. I don't want to say the stars aligned, but sort of that is what happened. With the XFC, if they hadn't have decided to come to Charlotte, perhaps we wouldn't have come across that opportunity. But the fact remains that when they did decide to come to Charlotte, that they immediately sought out the people that sort of came together in this inner circle of this region. And I'm not just talking about Renegade and my management company, but everybody from Paul Boo, Highest and IMB to right down to the Murder Squad and those guys, and Fitness Edge and down into Myrtle Beach with what Andy Hall's really developing down there. And I mean, it's taken off. But in answer to your question, I'm amazed. I didn't see it coming for 3 years. I knew it was going to happen, but I figured it'd be 3 years.
You want to turn off the? I heard it. I was like, oh shit. Yeah, it's editing.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm sort of. You bring a lot of controversy sometimes, I guess,
Yeah.
would be the question. How do you separate Mike Allen from the matchmaker, the promoter, the all-around mouth of the South,
Yeah.
Dub Red,
Yeah.
from everything else?
You know what? Anybody that knows me has been around me. When it's time for business, I'm business. I mean, when it's time to buckle down, and it's whether it be announcing at the Fight Lab show, or matchmaking the Fight Lab show, or interacting with the various commissions, or negotiating contracts for my guys that's in my bread and butter management stable, I'm all business. The funny thing is that the whole bread persona, number one, it's a little bit, fun and games. Number two, it's a little bit of who I am. Anybody that knows me from when I was a little kid, I've been starting fights and organizing fights down at Filter Plant Road in Canton, North Carolina. That's a long ways from Charlotte. And I've been starting trouble since I was in elementary school. Brewing up fights in the lunchroom, and I used to actually organize the fights in the bathroom.
That is hard.
You be here at this time, and you
So
be
you've
here
been doing this ever since
I've been
young?
doing. Man, I was doing this when I was literally in kindergarten. This is the truth. And so that's a part of that is just who I am. The shit talking and the browbeating and the insulting and stuff like that. I do it for various reasons. Number one, there's a group of people out there that finds it entertaining.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. It's never with ill intentions. If I have a serious problem with somebody, they know it. They know it. They know that I don't like them, and I make it very, very obvious. A lot of the stuff though that I say, on the bread persona, is for nothing more than to promote the fights, to bring some excitement to it. I give you a perfect example: Shane Crenshaw and Chris Kane. Chris Kane is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu specialist, phenomenal MMA fighter. He works just as hard as anyone down there, and he's with a great group of guys down there at Fitness Edge. And as soon as we found out, that Shane could be fighting him in Myrtle Beach, I've known Chris for a long time. So the first thing I do is I go on there and I'll start calling him Chrissy Kane. And luckily Crenshaw's a truly temperamental guy. So when Chris responded, Crenshaw jumps in, and it's back and forth. But the one thing you'll always notice, I think over the years, there's been maybe one or two times where it was really truly serious. I think with the Johnny Buck fight down with Sunny South in Atlanta, and the Johnny Buck fight with Ricky Rainey. If you notice, Johnny Buck's always involved in the heart of the serious stuff. But other than that, for me, it's about promoting the fights. And like I said, I separate it when it needs to be separated.
Have you ever since, I think I've known you about 3-4 years going on now, and I remember the first time I started getting into the business, people were like, "Oh, gotta watch out for Mike, gotta watch out for Brad." Have you tempered down yourself, you think, these past couple of years with, the smack talk and all this stuff, or have you gotten smarter about the smack talk?
Well, I'd say it's.
I've seen a difference in you.
Well, I definitely haven't tempered it down. I think that the biggest thing is that people have learned to accept it almost the same way. When Don King first came out, everybody said, "Oh, that guy's he's a criminal.
Yeah.
He's just a criminal. He's a crook. He's a criminal. He doesn't mean anybody any good. He's a crook and he's a criminal." Now, he may be a crook, and I don't know his legal background, but he's a very intelligent man, and he is in the promotion business. And in the promotion business, you're in the business of making money for yourself, for the fighters and the teams, and at the same time providing a certain level of entertainment for the fans. And so if he had to grow a big bushy, afro and shave it on the sides and say only in America, over X amount of years, it sort of became, well, acceptable. That's just Don King. And I think the biggest thing over the course of the last 3 years is people, in MMA have sort of just been like, man, that guy's he's just on another level of promotion. But, there's one thing that you can say about me, anybody that's been managed by me, they can't complain. I take care of them. I make sure they get plenty of fights. I make sure they get good fights. I make sure they get sponsorships if they allow me to do it. And that can never be argued with. I mean, you look at the group of guys that I've gotten into the XFC, and the group of guys that's going to be fighting on the Bellator cards and the Fight Lab cards and the Wild Bill cards and the Central Pennsylvania cards. I take care of business. The ones that don't do necessarily, I don't manage, but they fight on my cards. They fight my guys. If you ask them and they tell the truth, they'll tell you, Brad keeps his word. if you fight for bread, you know, you're going to have a tough fight, you're going to have a fair fight, and if you win or lose, but as long as you fight hard, you're going to get brought back. And so in answer to the question, no, I definitely haven't tempered it down. I think it's just become a little bit more acceptable, and people know that's who I am, and they don't take it as offensively as they used to. Like, perfect example, Chrissy Kane. You know, Chrissy knows that I'm just trying to promote the fight, and for that reason, Chrissy doesn't come up here and put his boa constrictor legs around me and try to choke me or anything. So it works out for the best.
Since getting back to the entertainment aspect of it, the marketing aspect of the fights now is being really ratcheted up. Even now in this hopefully recovering economy, there's sponsors out there looking for these guys to get in there. How much is it to have a persona, either the good guy or the bad guy? Maybe does that help out promoting a fight a little bit? Is that a good thing for the guys to maybe do?
I mean, it just depends. It really depends on the fighter. You know, I've got some guys that I work with that are just absolute cartoon characters. You know, Joey El Dingo Loco Carroll is a cartoon character within himself. I mean, he's just, you know, in his mind and in his persona, he's bigger than life, and he projects himself that way. And then on the flip side of that coin, you know, you got a guy like J.J. Brantley or Dennis and Paiva. You know, those guys they're humble, they're quiet, they're not quite as vocal as maybe, you know, if I was managing them that I would want them to be, but at the same time, their skill sets speak for themselves. The problem with a guy like that, though, is you know, unless his career is being guided in the right directions and he's tied in with the right promotion who's going to get him those fights, and then a manager who's going to make sure that those fights are seen, known by the right people. You know, sometimes it's hard for a guy like that to really get out there in the limelight. You know, you take a guy like Shane Crenshaw, who fights often, he fights hard, and he wins. And he's not the most, you know, charismatic guy to look at, but you know, when he steps up to the microphone, it's F this, F that, I'm gonna whip your you know what, and then he goes out there and he does it. You know, that sells. You know, he's probably the most marketable fighter in Myrtle Beach, and he doesn't even live in Myrtle Beach. You know, he has a price on his head down there, and the crowd will pay money to come see him get beat. Same thing with Shane Crenshaw at Wild Bills. They want to see Shane Crenshaw get beat. So I don't think that the fighters out there, they definitely don't need to create a fake persona. They need to be themselves. But if they're not going to be charismatic, if they're not going to really put themselves out there, you know, then they need to have someone doing it for them, and it needs to be in a healthy way. You know, it doesn't need to be unrealistic. You know, if I went online and I said, hey man, you know, Ricky Rainey is the baddest MFer on the face of the planet, and I'm gonna bring him on here and he's gonna tell you about it, and he's gonna strut and he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that. And then they get to the show and you know, Ricky sort of just knocks people dead, and then he's just like, oh well, you know, well, that's not gonna sell. So you gotta be able to sell the piece of the fighter that's there, you know, and it's got to be there. Which, by the way, Dennis and Paiva, J.J. Brantley, if you're looking for representation, you're always welcome to come to Renegade Fighting Systems and Bread and Butter Management.
Always out there promoting. Always out there.
Hey man, I'm always trying to get to the money.
If you had to craft and taking yourself out from being a fight lab, how would you craft a good show? What's your sort of dream promotion if you are able to do that in so many words? You know?
A dream promotion. A dream promotion for me is
Bread's promotion.
Bread's promotion. Bread's promotion. Man, you know what? Man, there's so many different things to list, but I can say this. It would be Fight Lab with Wild Bill's venue with Warfare's business plan. That would be phenomenal with the fighters, with the action of the fighters that you get at a Fight Lab show. You know, I don't want to harp on the Fight Lab because there's a lot of faults that I see with the Fight Lab because I work in Fight Lab. But you know, the one thing that separates Fight Lab is we almost could put a fight in a barn, and everybody would leave there saying the same thing. Did I just go to a fight in a barn, or did I go to a party where a fight broke out in a barn? And that's exciting. You know, I see a lot of promotions trying to duplicate what the USC does. And that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, the UFC is the UFC, and as long as people are trying to duplicate what the UFC does, it's not going to work. Like I see these promotions on Access TV that the XFC is on, and I'm not talking about the XFC, but I see these other promotions on Access TV, and I'm watching the fights, and the fights are just horrible. The fights are horrendous. The fights are horrendous. There's no electricity in the venue. And what's discouraging is then I go to a Warfare or Wild Bills or a Fight Lab, and I'm like, man, when are these networks going to wake up and find a way to take that energy that's at Wild Bills Fight Night and bring it to live television? Because that's what's going to have to happen for somebody to be a serious competitor with the UFC. Yeah. And that would be my dream promotion would be the Wild Bills venue with the Fight Lab energy and the Warfare business plan. That would be phenomenal.
I'm sort of interested to get your take on this, and I sort of have maybe two different scenarios. Is the quality of MMA going up or down in the United States, not necessarily here in the Southeast region? Is it maybe due to bad matchmaking, or maybe such young fighters who don't really get the well-rounded, structured training anymore? Because you got tons of schools popping up because MMA is just growing at a great rate in the United States.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is they don't have Big Phil, as you can hear in the background, the loudest man in 15 states. But no, seriously, I don't know so much that the level is going down. Me personally, I mean, I've wrestled all my life. And I did martial arts as a kid, and I've been in the mixed martial arts scene for a long time. The one thing that I'll say about mixed martial arts is when people say it's evolving, it's an ever-evolving sport, man, they don't understand how right they are. I think that the problem is not that it's decreasing. I think that it's young. Mm-hmm. The sport's still young, and that's what people just keep forgetting. We're 2013. That means the sport, technically, in America, 20 years old. Mm-hmm. That's young. Yeah. Man, what the UFC's accomplished is ridiculous. So what's happening is because the UFC, I think, has grown to this astronomical juggernaut in entertainment, in sports entertainment, now they've got to find the best talent. And I think what's being found out is once you get past that top 10%, the bottom 90 doesn't really match up to that top 10. And again, I don't think that's a lack of training or a lack of anything. I think it's just that the sport is so young. I mean, we still haven't went through that phase where the best athletes in the world are leaving football and basketball and coming over to mixed martial arts. Now, I mean, it's happening a little bit, but I mean, you go to the Warfare show. There's two or three out of 25, 30 guys that's fighting. There's 2 or 3 that really stand out as athletes. That you look at and you go, man, that guy, he could, if he don't want to do MMA, he could be a professional football player, professional baseball player, professional basketball player. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, that's not happening yet. Now, with the collegiate wrestling, not having a pro sport to really go into, they're sort of migrating in. But then you find out, you take a collegiate wrestler, and out of 5 of them, you find out that only one of them really gonna stick with it because the other 4 realize that you gotta get punched in the face. So I think that over the next 20 years, 20 years from now, you're gonna start to see that migration, and that's when things will really pop up. My fear is that, shows like Bellator, who's going to do 49 shows in 52 weeks on Spike, that means they have to up their roster. And they go into these regional markets, and you walk in, and if you're watching 30 guys train, and you only come out with 1 or 2, it's not a very good ratio when you got to put 49 fights in 52 weeks. So, I don't know. I mean, that's just my opinion. Sort of long-winded, very evasive way of answering the question, but
I'll take it. you want to evade the question, that's fine with me.
I didn't evade the question. That's my true answer, really. I honestly don't feel like the level is going down. I think that it's just we're a young sport, and we're starting to realize how young the sport really is because of the growth, the over-exaggerated growth of the UFC or of a Bellator.
Everybody wants to be in the UFC and think they can.
Hey man, everybody wants to be in the UFC, and the UFC and Bellator need everybody to be in it now because they're doing so many fights, and they're going out there and they're finding out. It's not that there's not people interested in doing it. It's not that people's not training in it. It's just that, hell, the best people's not training in it. You know, let's be realistic. Wrestling's the perfect sport. The Olympic gold medalist isn't fighting. He's not fighting. The best boxer's not fighting. The kid that can run the 4.240 and 42-inch vertical leap in high school, he's not training to be an MMA fighter. And that's just the reality of the situation, and people have got to realize that. You know, the sport is young, and when we realize the sport is young and we allow it to grow, which is going to mean this, in my opinion, you got to let the Tony Tans, and you got to let the Aaron Osborns, and you got to let the Tomar Washingtons, you got to let them shine, because that's what's out there. Those are the guys that's busting their asses to get to the UFC. So you can't not give them a chance, or give them a chance, and then they get there, and because they lose, kick them out. You know, because that's what's out there. Yeah. That's who you got to pick from. You know, you don't get to pick from. And I'm not downing those guys, because, again, you may find out that All-American wrestler or that All-American track star, when he finds out he's got to get punched in the face, it's a different story.
I don't really want to do that.
I don't want to do that. Cornbread hit me in my eye. That's a lie, because Cornbread's not hitting anybody in the eye.
All right. Was there somebody, I'll start this over. Was there a guy out there you tried to get maybe for a card that refused or didn't want to get there, or just a hard time trying to get him on a card, maybe you still want to put on a Fight Lab card?
You know, I'm pretty sure that for the most part, over the years, we've pretty much gotten whoever we want to with Fight Lab. Usually if we want an athlete to come and fight on our card, it's pretty much just asking. Now, I can't remember a time ever that I asked someone to do it and they just didn't want to fight for us, for Fight Lab. I can recall several instances where, you know, ego's an MFer, man. And when you're talking about a fighter, you're not just talking about him individually. You're talking about his manager, you're talking about his training partners, you're talking about his wife, girlfriend, his mom. You're also talking about the promotion that's in his backyard where he does most of his fights. And I've ran into that a whole lot, you know, where I wanted somebody to come, you know, compete for Fight Lab because I knew that they were an exceptional talent, and maybe they lived in Omaha, Mississippi, and fought for Hillbilly Jim's cage fighting. And Hillbilly Jim may not have liked what the Bread said on the Bread fan page, or maybe he didn't like Kenny Letts, or maybe he sent somebody to Fight Lab one time and he really thought they was going to whip up on Jeremy Perdue, and Jeremy Perdue knocked him dead. And so they don't want, you know, they tell the kid in the backyard that I asked, you know, if you go fight for Fight Lab, well, we're not going to put you back on it. And that's his region. That's where that kid lives, you know. So, you know, I've ran into several of those. I will say this, though. Again, the sport is young, and it's really funny. The guys and the guys that thought they were players 4 or 5 years ago, that thought they were the big dogs, the big promotion, and threw their weight around and made life hard on us. We couldn't get guys because of them, or maybe you know, they just made life difficult. The funny thing is, those guys aren't around anymore. You know, the real players and the guys that really care about the fighters and care about the sport, those are the ones whose shows are sticking around, you know, and are doing well. You know, Kenny Letts and Fight Lab, Dave Oblis and Wild Bills, Andy Hall and Warfare, Jared Williams and Conflict, him and Andrew Stokes, what they got going on down there, Scott Price and the USFFC. You know, those guys are still around. Billy Dowie and what's it called?
Bull City.
Bull City Brawl. Those are the players that have stepped up. You know, down there at King of Jacksonville. You know, that group of people are here, and I've pretty much discovered it's hilarious. You know, now when I want somebody, you know, I look them up, and if I see their schedule on a card, you know, I call Billy up, and Billy says, hey man, I'll let them know and put the word in for you, and vice versa. You know, everybody's trying to scratch each other's backs, and of course my mouth always causes some confusion and conflict, but for the most part we always work through it. But I can't remember ever asking an athlete and them not wanting to fight for us.
What's it going to look like at the end of the year when I come back in January of 2014? What's the Carolina MMA scene going to look like in 2013? What do we have paved out for the rest of the year?
Well,
maybe not in general promotions. Maybe I don't know if the UFC is going to have a show, but will there be more XFC shows coming through? Maybe Bellator making another tour. How many more pros are you going to have just in general from around the Carolinas who could be making their way up?
You know, I would say by 2014, I think by mid-2014, this region, and when I say region, I call it the Dirty Dirty, North Carolina, South Carolina, and down to the Atlanta MMA market. I would say that the Dirty Dirty is going to have several athletes at the high levels of MMA. I'm not quite so sure that by then we will have anyone, you know, that's fighting, that's even a contender status in the UFC. But I do believe that we can definitely by then have some people that's contending for Bellator titles, fighting in the Bellator tournaments. I think that we'll have some people fighting for the XFC for their championships. I think there's going to be some guys probably making their way up to MFC up in Canada. There's going to be some guys that are going to be on national recognition. You know, guys, people know who Rick Hahn is with Bellator, the judo Olympic judoka. People know who Ben Askren is with Bellator. People know who Nick Newell is with XFC. People don't really know who's on the undercard of the UFC. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. But I do think there's going to be some guys regionally from the Dirty Dirty in the UFC. I don't think they'll be fighting or contending for titles in 2014. But I do think that, you know, with the other organizations, Bellator, MFC, XFC, I think there'll be guys
within this calendar year of 2013, maybe?
2013, 2014. Okay. I think by the end of 2013, to end of 2013, this is my prediction, you will definitely see someone in the Bellator tournament. Okay. And at the end of this, when I make my announcement, you might know who it is. But I think that by 2013, I think that I'll just call names on this one. I honestly believe you'll see Kevin Ferrant competing for the XFC Lightweight World Championship by the end of 2013, 2014. I think you'll see Ricky Rainey competing for the XFC Welterweight World title. I think you're going to see Justin Scoggins probably in the USC. I think you're going to see Derek Brunson making huge splashes in the UFC. I don't think he'll be competing for the world title this calendar year, but I would say that 2014 Derek Brunson will be a household name. I think Shane Crenshaw. I think you're going to see him on the national scene very soon. So, you know, we've got some talented guys, and then we've got some amateurs that just, man, the world hasn't seen J.J. Brantley and Dennis and Paiva. Man, when those guys are let loose in the pro ranks, it's going to be impressive. Duran McDonald from Modern Warrior. Speaking of Modern Warrior, I'd look for Keith Richardson to get back into the swing of things on a national level, quick. You know, I mean, this region is talented. You know, there's a guy down in Atlanta, Georgia. I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try. From American Top Team. This kid is phenomenal, lightweight, and you should see him very, very soon in the pro ranks. Tony Tan, you know, Corey Von Egedy, when he chooses a weight to stick at and he turns pro, he's going to be impressive. I mean, the region is just the whole murder squad down there in Columbia. Every one of them guys.
Just lump them all together.
Oh, just lump them. They can just get they're like a transformer, dude. You know, you combine them together and you got problems. You know, Ben Willard, that's an amateur that just, I mean, Ben Willard, He is the man. If you are a featherweight, do not fight him. But I'm sure with the management that I see in this region, a couple people's going to be foolish enough to fight him, and Ben Willard will be 4-0 pro before you know it. So I'm excited. I really am, as you can tell.
I think that'll do it.